So, have you all seen the footage from the Bath Festival that was just released? Bath Festival 1970. It is silent footage, however, it's really incredible quality. It's really great footage of the band playing, mostly the first part of their concert, because as the evening came on, it got darker and darker, of course, and the exposure, I guess, was too low. The light exposure was too low to be of much use. At least that's the story. So a good part of the concert from the middle to the end, I guess, wasn't really usable or viewable. But the stuff that is on YouTube just looks incredible. There's some really stunning footage of Bonham playing. They're just little fragments, but from those little bits, you can really glean a lot. And just like with new material that comes to light, anything related to Bonham, there's always new discoveries to be made. So I wanted to make this video today because I was particularly interested in a couple things that I noticed right off the bat. The footage starts with the beginning of the concert, which is Immigrant song, and it's likely the first time Immigrant song had ever been played. It may have been played in Iceland. Iceland, go Iceland. This is one of those situations where my wife and son took a vacation and all I got was this t-shirt. I don't know if you can see that, but it says, "We come from the land of the ice and snow, from the midnight sun where the hot springs blow." Is it blow or flow? I'm not sure. It's kind of hard to tell. Where the hot springs flow, I thought. Maybe he says blow sometimes, maybe he says flow. Anyway, one thing's for sure. When Robert starts singing the lyric at the beginning of the song, it's almost unintelligible what he's saying. The words changed from the time they did this concert to the time they actually put the final vocal track down. That being said, what I wanted to point out, first of all, is the groove that Bonzo is playing. Even without the sound, you can tell that the bass drum pattern he's playing, it actually mirrors the riff more than the studio version or any subsequent versions. So by that I mean, he's playing, in the video you can see he's playing a pickup to the downbeat. Now I always thought there was no pickup to the downbeat. I thought the pickup to the downbeat was pretty much played by the snare. But if you see the footage with the audio, you can hear that Bonzo's playing two beats to start. So in other words, at the top of each bar, instead of playing, he's actually playing. Now that, a lot of people, I think, play the beat that way. They think that's the way it was recorded, but I've actually isolated the drum part from the studio recording and from How the West Was Won, and also from listening to countless, bootleg performances. Usually you don't hear that pickup going to the one. You don't hear. You just hear. So it's really interesting to see this footage, however brief it is, where he's actually playing the pattern that way. And it's of course, being the first time likely that the song was played live, it could simply be that he played it that way that day, and then from that point on, he settled on the simpler, pattern. But this is, what it sounds like if you play it at tempo. With that foot pattern, it's a little more work, definitely. So it's like. that was the first interesting discovery that I made, seeing that footage from the side. Another thing is, two things. First of all, I think Bonzo, based on this footage and the footage from Danmark's TV that you can see from the left side, I believe he was pretty much a heel-up player, and which I am not. I actually find heel-up to be pretty difficult. I would have to spend a lot of time perfecting that technique. My bass drum technique, if you've seen some of my previous bass drum instructional or analysis videos of my technique, I use kind of a rolling method. I think some people call it a heel to toe. I also play flat foot a lot of the time. Flat foot is particularly useful if you're looking to not bury the beater. You can, play any technique and not bury the beater, but I find that it's easiest when I'm flat-footed. So that brings me to my next point. You can see in these clips, if you slow them down and really zoom in on Bonzo's foot, he's burying the beater a good amount of the time. And, I've always suspected that he must have buried the beater, especially when it's a really loud and fast kind of passage, ending with accents that are real strong. It doesn't make sense to never bury the beater if you're trying to get a really hard attack. There's also a limit to how hard you can actually kick the bass drum without burying the beater, without putting all of your leg into it. If you pull back off of the head every time, you're going to get a rounder, fuller sound. You're not going to get as much punch, but you're also not going to get as much volume. I mean, you can kick the hell out of the bass drum and glance the beater off, and you're not going to be able to get the same level of volume and attack as you would if you dig the beater into the head. And you can see in this footage, this is Immigrant song. I mean, this it's full on, full power. He's not coming off the bass drum very much. It's a very refined technique, and it's one of those things that I often think sometimes drummers like to get into this mindset of it's always or never. Like he always buried the beater or he never buried the beater. He always buried the stick and the rim shot on the snare, or he never did. The truth is always, I think, more complex and varied. And you can see footage of Bonzo where the stick is a dead stroke into the head, like this. You get a really nice, quick, hard pop, a really nice attack on the rim shot. Now, when you don't dead stroke it, you get more snare tone. Dead stroke, open stroke, or dampened. This is dampened. This is open. So. Generally, I prefer to make it a dampened stroke because I just think it has a fatter pocket. But, there's no real rhyme or reason. It's all a feel thing, and that's what makes the drums, that's what gives the drummers a personality, is the subtle differences that they employ while playing the instrument. So, getting back to the bass drum thing, in the video, you can see his heel is up. He's playing the bass drum pattern. Now, the way I'm doing this, I use that kind of rocking method. And I don't bury the beater every stroke, but some of the strokes I do. It's the same thing to me, like, for example, in Black Dog, in that first change when the, and he plays that fill. Now, those bass drum strokes, they could be open, they could be, maybe he didn't bury the beater, but to me it feels much more natural if you want to get that hard attack to bury the beater. And playing live, like for example, any of those live recordings, I just can't imagine that he wasn't laying into that beater sometimes. Same thing on Dazed and Confused. There are times where it sounds very round and open, and then he'll slam it. Now that was a dampened stroke. That was a buried stroke, just that one. Now, I love the sound of the open ringing bass drum without burying the beater. But I hope I'm not like over emphasizing this or, harping on it. But it's just to say that it's all part of the drummer's toolbox to be able to play each drum with variances, with different types of texture, with different types of attack, technique. And obviously Bonzo was a master of bass drum technique. Certainly he was just a very gifted young drummer. In this footage, he's 22 years old. He had just turned 22 in May of 1970. And this footage was shot somewhere around June 27th, I think. They had just played in Reykjavik, Iceland. And like I said earlier, that may have been the first time they played Immigrant Song. It's not really known. There are rumors that it was played. There's no audio from that show other than the little video clips of Page doing a bow solo and stuff. At any rate, that was the first show that he used the Green Sparkle kit. So he may have gotten the kit to do some recording for the third album, like in May. But the very first gig was Reykjavik, Iceland, that he used the Green Sparkles. And then the next gig was Bath. And by the time he played Bath, he had the rail consolette, just like this one, mounted. In Iceland, he had the 14 by 10 tom mounted on a snare stand. He also had his cymbal setup, which would remain the same for quite a while, for a couple years. He had his, and that's what I have here, 18-inch, 20-inch, 24-inch Giant Beat white label cymbals. These hi-hats are Giant Beats. He was not using Giant Beats at Bath. He was using 602 Sound Edge hi-hats. You could see the ripples. Another interesting thing that I noticed in the short bit that's visible of Immigrant Song is he's playing heel up, and that's hard for me to do. I think I just mentioned this. What I'd like to do is cut away to me attempting to play heel up and play that pattern, and it's actually pretty challenging. So it's going to be a warts and all kind of moment. So as you can see, it's a lot more challenging for me to be able to play with my heel up than it is the way that I've been playing since, as long as I can remember. Okay, so the other songs that are featured in these short fragments are Dazed and Confused. There's just a bit of that. He's wailing on the gong before they come back in on Jimmy's guitar solo, which is really incredible footage to see. And if you can see it with the synced up audio and him just murdering the gong, it's just so exciting and awesome. There's some footage of the end of Dazed and Confused, and you can see the drum key he has on his floor tom is jiggling around. I mean, the detail is just amazing. 16 millimeter film, And of course, it was just camera. The audio would have been recorded separately. A lot of people ask, why isn't there sound? Where's the sound? Well, this wasn't like a camcorder where there's sound built into the camera. This is film. And with film, they have to cue up audio and video. And that's why you see the clipboard, the slates, for some of the backstage footage. There's also really great footage in the trailer, like the band trailer and behind the stage. And there's some really great footage of Bonzo walking around toward the camera, and he's talking a little bit in the trailer, lights up a cigarette, but unfortunately the sound is not there. So to sync up that sound, you got to get the original recordings, and who knows where they are. But the bootleg audio for the music is really great, despite the fact that it's pretty poor quality. The recording quality of that show, the tape, is not very good. There's a couple sources at least, but they're pretty much all bad quality. But nonetheless, it's really a whole other experience seeing that silent footage synced up with the audio. At one point, you could see Bonham is playing he's playing the Bonham engine at the end of Dazed and Confused, and he's kind of alternating between the early way he used to play that section, which is doubles on the snare and floor tom and doubles on the bass drum like this. That kind of thing. And in this footage, he's alternating between that and this. There's also footage of Bring It On Home. You can't really see his footwork there, though. That footage is shot more from this angle off to his right. And what else is there? I think there's some footage of Thank You, not much. There was one more thing that I had on my mind. Oh yeah, this isn't that big a deal. Bonzo's hitting hard, but I think a lot of what people associate with John's style is incorrect, and that is he didn't slay the drums, as Terry likes to say. He didn't slay them. He didn't hit them like he was trying to drive the stick through the head. He had a really great way of pulling the sound out of the instrument and hitting hard, but not like, there's a difference between hitting through the drum and drawing the sound out, and it's usually it has to do with wrist technique. You can see this when he crashes the cymbals. He's very animated when he plays, like he's really getting into, this kind of thing. Just physically, his body is moving to the music, but he's not hitting as hard as you might think. And at times he does, but again, he's very dynamic. Like sometimes his sticks are up here, and he comes down and he goes. But when he crashes the cymbals of the groove, if you notice, Bonzo typically, especially early on, he held his sticks kind of like this. Like this stick, his hand is almost in the middle at times. And Jason mentions this somewhere in an interview. He talks about like how his favorite jazz drummers, like Gene Krupa, Buddy Rich, they choke up on the stick. The left hand, maybe not so much because you need the space for the rim shot, but this right hand was often right about here in the earlier days. And then I think by like Earl's Court, he was down a little bit lower. He was changing his technique a bit. But when he crashes the cymbals, like Immigrant song, I'll give you an example, okay? So like... it's about like that. It's like... his arm comes back pretty good ways, but he's not, he's not coming from up here. He's not, throwing everything he's got into it like he's chopping a big piece of wood or something. Another thing is you max out or peak out the volume and the sound, more importantly, of the cymbal crash if you go beyond a certain point of velocity and strength. You get diminished returns. You're just smashing the shit out of the cymbal and you're not getting any good sound other than, like a quick, high frequency explosion, and that's about it. But to draw the sound out, you have to hit it in a way where the cymbal is going to expand and have a beautiful sound, Now, I'm not love tapping the cymbal, but I'm not slaying it either. I hope you all got something out of this video. I just kind of wanted to nerd out a little bit about this incredible footage from the Bath Blues Music Festival in 1970. So be well, everybody. Stay safe. Take care.